Frazier.
Chet Huntley. David Benson. John Chen. Tom Brokaw.
Is it a turning point? Senator Joe Lieberman loses to a newcomer. Now other Democrats are wondering if support for the Iraq War will doom them too. Israel tonight is vowing to go deeper into Lebanon on the ground. Hezbollah vows the battleground will become Israel's graveyard. An NBC News investigation, something else for parents to worry about. Underage kids buying booze online. But why is it this easy? And a breakthrough in lung cancer treatment that could help millions who get an early diagnosis.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. It was just a primary election in the middle of the summer in a small New England state, and yet now that all the votes have been counted, it might go down as the political shot heard round the country this year. Democratic Senator Joe Lieberman, a man who almost became this nation's vice president a few years ago, could not win election by the voters of his own party in his own state. Lieberman has been a steadfast defender of President Bush's Iraq war policy, his opponent anti-war, and now the fallout from all of this begins. We'll get Tim Russert's take on this in just a moment. We want to begin our reporting tonight with NBC's Chip Reid, who is at the state capitol in Hartford. And Chip, what a night there.
Yes, it is, Brian. Joe Lieberman officially filed today to run as an independent candidate, and the reaction was swift. Dozens of Democrats who were once some of his biggest supporters are now firmly aligned against him.
It was hardly a concession speech. Joe Lieberman barely acknowledging that he lost.
I cannot and will not let that result stand on
and firmly predicting victory in the fall as an independent candidate.
Team Connecticut is going to surge forward to victory in November.
What's Team Connecticut? He described it as a coalition of Democrats, independents, and Republicans, and he'll need them, especially if he becomes more isolated within the Democratic Party. His increasing isolation was on display today as a flood of prominent national Democrats who've long supported Lieberman abandoned him in favor of his victorious opponent, Ned Lamont.
I'll be sending a contribution to Mr. Lamont today. I've called to offer whatever support he needs.
Dozens of Connecticut Democrats also rejected longtime friend Lieberman today in a show of party unity, rallying behind Lamont, a man many of them barely know.
We want to change a course. We want to change a course in Iraq. We want to start investing in our own country again.
Many Democrats praised Lamont for taking Lieberman to task over his strong support of the Iraq War. But in that praise, top Republicans today saw an opportunity. Ken Mehlman, head of the Republican Party, argued that by rejecting Lieberman, Democrats have proven once again that they are the party of, quote, retreat and defeat.
It reflects an unfortunate embrace of isolationism, defeatism, and too often a blame America first attitude by national Democratic leaders.
Lieberman said today he has not gotten much pressure from Democrats to drop out. He says that's because people know that once he makes his mind up about something, he sticks to it. Brian?
Chip, thanks for that. Chip Reid in Hartford, Connecticut tonight. And for more on this, we are joined by our NBC News Washington Bureau Chief, moderator of Meet the Press, Tim Russert, in our Washington newsroom. Tim, how does a Democrat now run against a Democrat?
Well, Brian, it's going to be quite interesting to watch. This was a big event. Only twice in the last quarter century has an incumbent Democratic senator lost. And a 42% turnout, an energetic voting base. Joe Lieberman hopes to say, on the right wing is the Republican candidate, on the left wing is the Democratic candidate. I'm the man of the big center. All you independents and moderate Republicans, moderate Democrats, find it home with me. But what about the issue of Iraq, which is very unpopular with almost all Democrats? How does he maintain hold on part of that Democratic base? Number two, do the Republicans try to draft a new candidate to run against Lieberman? They still have time to do that. And three, Brian, Watch the polls. If a month from now, Joe Lieberman is not competitive in this race, the pressure will be enormous for him to drop out and not to be a spoiler. The polls are critical in the next 30 days.
Now, Tim, does this have portability? No matter where you are in the country, if you're a Democrat and you supported the Iraq war, does it mean you're in trouble?
The message is the electorate, at least Democrats, are very angry about this war, and they want you to get right about it. That's why John Edwards, Joe Biden, John Kerry have all said they regret their vote for the war. Hillary Clinton hasn't gone that far yet, but she has called for Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense's resignation. A lot of pressure on Hillary Clinton to try to, quote, get right on the war. And, Brian, Republicans are being told by the White House it's okay to criticize the management of the war, just don't be for immediate withdrawal of troops.
A big day to be in the politics business. Tim Russert, thanks as always for joining us from our Washington bureau. There is important news out of the Middle East tonight. Israel is launching a ground invasion of South Lebanon. It is underway right now. It is a widening of this offensive designed to push Hezbollah back, they say, north of the Litani River, further away from Haifa and other Israeli cities, before a ceasefire can be put in place. NBC's Martin Fletcher is in Haifa for us tonight. Martin, good evening.
Brian, hello. If the fighting's been bad in South Lebanon, well, it's about to get a lot worse. An Israeli cabinet member said today that the Israeli government has decided to launch a full ground invasion of South Lebanon that could last another month or even longer. Israel's reserves are off to war. Until now, a handful, now a full invasion force. Up to 20,000 could join the 10,000 soldiers already in Lebanon. This is the challenge. After a month of intense fighting, Israel is still battling Hezbollah fighters only a kilometer, about 1,000 yards from its border. Despite claims, it's set up a security zone 4 miles deep. The fighting here is only about 1 kilometer inside Lebanon, and the Israelis are saying they're not happy either. The chief of staff has appointed a tough new general to oversee the forces in Lebanon, a sign he isn't satisfied with the progress so far. Brian.
Martin, thanks. Martin Fletcher in northern Israel for us again tonight. We have an update on the case of Jill Carroll tonight. She's the Christian Science Monitor journalist who was kidnapped and held captive in Iraq for 82 days, then released just this past March. Today, we learned from U.S. officials that 4 Iraqi men were arrested last month in Baghdad in connection with her kidnapping. Carroll was apparently held at 4 separate locations, including this home, between the Iraqi cities of Baghdad and Fallujah. It appears tonight the case of 11 young men lost in America, or maybe deliberately missing, has just about been solved. The young men were all Egyptian students who were supposed to show up for an academic program in Bozeman, Montana. They did not, and that, in our new post-9/11 world, triggered a whole nationwide search. NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams is with us tonight from the Department of Homeland Security headquarters in Washington. Pete, where does this story go from here?
Well, Brian, what the students came here for was to get a lesson in American culture. What they're learning about is post-9/11 security. These are all young men, Egyptian college students, who came with student visas and arrived at Kennedy Airport July 29th. They were supposed to go on to Montana State University for a month-long exchange program. 6 of their classmates did, but these 11 didn't, and that's what touched off the search. Now, 3 of them were picked up today, 1 in Minnesota, 2 in New Jersey, who apparently got lost and called the police. In the past 3 years, since the U.S. began carefully tracking the student visa violations, more than 7,000 have been reported, nearly 1,300 of them still unresolved, and that's out of nearly 1 million foreign students and exchange visitors who are here at any given time, Brian.
And so, Pete, why specifically the concern about these students and what they were up to?
Well, we were told all along that they had no terrorist connections. It was simply that they were young Egyptian men who didn't do with their student visas what they said they were going to do, and that was a method that one of the 9/11 hijackers used to get into the country. So that was the reason for the concern.
Pete, thanks for that. Pete Williams outside Homeland Security headquarters in the northwest quadrant of Washington, D.C. tonight. And now to the latest on this fiasco involving BP Oil's Alaskan oil pipeline. The governor of that state today imposed a hiring freeze because of the millions of dollars in revenue that the state of Alaska is losing as a result of the Prudhoe Bay oil field shutdown. This as more evidence is emerging now that the company perhaps knew about the pipeline problems long ago, as it turns out. Here is NBC News senior investigative correspondent Lisa Myers.
BP now admits that senior company officials were warned 3 years ago about serious corrosion in the pipeline. The warnings were laid out in correspondence obtained by NBC News between Chuck Hamill, an advocate for oil workers, and senior BP officials. Hamill writes that BP workers had come to him predicting a major catastrophic event and warning that cost cutting had caused serious corrosion damage to flow lines and systems.
They were cheating in what's required of them in a normal business practice in an oil field to save money, to cut corners.
BP officials did respond at the time, but said we cannot investigate or act without specific information. In the last few months, a number of BP workers have told the FBI that for years, supervisors ordered them to cut back on a key chemical known as corrosion inhibitor put into the system to protect pipes. After a major spill last March, BP told federal regulators there was a reduced level of corrosion inhibitor in the system which failed. Federal officials ordered BP to inject more chemicals into the pipeline. Today, a top BP official defended its anti-corrosion program.
We're learning. We recognize that we thought we had a program that was sufficient, that we need to do more.
A learning process likely to soon cost consumers at the pump. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
On Wall Street today, stocks were in positive territory for most of the day, but reversed late and finished down for the fourth straight session officially. Dow was down more than 97 points. NASDAQ lost just a fraction of 1 point. We'll take a break when Nightly News continues this Wednesday night. NBC News In Depth. Will you be among those who are surprised at just how easy it is for young people to buy liquor on the internet? And later, major news out today about lung cancer, a new approach to treatment that could just save lives. NBC News In Depth tonight, online liquor sales to minors. Just how easy is it for kids to buy alcohol with just the click of a mouse? In the past year alone, 20 states have made it easier for people to buy alcohol online. That led their competitors, the folks who sell liquor over the counter in actual stores and bars, to do some research on just how easy it is for kids to get it, like parents needed the worry. NBC's Lee Thompson has more In Depth tonight.
While watching the movie Eurotrip last summer, incoming college freshman Rich DeBella and his buddies had an idea.
The people in the movie had like this trippy hallucination, weird feeling, and we wanted to see if the drink would give us the same feeling.
The drink was 136 proof absinthe, and so their parents wouldn't find out. The teenagers ordered it with a Visa gift credit card they got at a local bank.
It is a lot easier because there's no IDing.
According to a new survey to be released tomorrow, 1 in 10 teenagers have an underage friend who has ordered beer, wine, or liquor over the internet. More than a third think they can easily do it, and nearly half think they won't get caught.
There hadn't been the evidence, and now we have the evidence.
The survey was paid for by the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, whose members compete against.
There's some good news when Nightly News continues in just a moment. A big advance in treating the cancer that kills more Americans than any other type. In the U.S. of A., which happens to be right here in the city of New York, is in the news due to security concerns. The observation deck in the crown of the Statue of Liberty has been closed off ever since 9/11. Today it was announced the change will become permanent. From now on, visitors will be able to look out only from the feet of the statue. Our health news tonight concerns lung cancer, which remains by far the #1 cancer killer in this country. According to the American Cancer Society, 21% of adults in America smoke. 22% are former smokers, putting them at special risk. The good news is that doctors are diagnosing lung cancer earlier than ever, and now there is a new test that can help patients decide what to do after that. Here is NBC News Chief Science Correspondent Robert Bazell.
taking a deep breath.
Tonight, actor and comedian Robin Williams has announced he has checked himself into rehab because, according to a statement, he found himself drinking again. He's joked about his drinking in the past, but in this official statement, he says, quote, he has decided to take proactive measures to deal with this for his own well-being and the well-being of his family. Take another break. When we come back, what some of you are saying to us.
For a sneak peek of NBC Nightly News, log on to Early Nightly, Brian Williams' video weblog, weekday afternoons at dailynightly.msnbc.com.
NASCAR's at the Glen. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart. Both of these superstars need to come up big to move up in the chase for the championship. NASCAR on NBC, Sunday, 1 Eastern.
We will leave you tonight with some of you, specifically some evidence of how this broadcast has become more interactive of late, and share a few of the mountain of emails we receive every day and after every broadcast we do. We read them all, and we share them, and we discuss them, and many lately have had to do with the wars being fought halfway around the globe and our coverage of them. On August 2nd, a viewer wrote, once again, you are so transparent with your agenda and viewpoints. Instead of only highlighting, no, make that sensationalizing U.S. deaths in Iraq with a huge body count number flashed on the screen. Do you think it might also have been the news worth noting that July's casualty count was the third lowest in the past 2 years, and that they fell in July for the third straight month? Of course not, because that does not fit the template of your news program. On our recent story on that study showing that modern music lyrics may lead to early sexual activity, one viewer wrote, to compare rap music to Elvis is a disgrace. I feel NBC News owes an apology to the millions of Elvis fans on this planet. Another viewer wrote, teenage sex has everything to do with hormones and self-actualization and nothing to do with the top 40. And as much as we truly wish it was all about the news, there is this. I like listening to Brian's evening news, but last night I actually switched to ABC News because I could not stand the way Brian was dressed. Why does it have to be that way? Well, sir, you may force me to call that nice fellow over there at ABC to see where he buys his stuff. Please, all of you, keep watching, and please keep writing us. On that note, that's our broadcast, imperfections and all, for this Wednesday night. Thank you, as always, for being with us. I'm Brian Williams, and as always, we hope you can be with us again tomorrow evening. Good night.
Tomorrow on Today, driving under the influence, how just a few drinks could affect you. We'll show you exactly what happens, only on Today on Next on X.